Kang Tae-ho sat alone in his small room on the Valari space station. The room was simple. It had a bed, a desk, and a window that showed the endless darkness of space. He had lived here for 2 years now, working as a diplomatic attaché for Earth. His job was not important. He attended meetings. He carried messages. He smiled at aliens who looked at him like he was an insect. Humanity was new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 15 years ago. To the older races, humans were children, primitive, weak, unimportant. Tae-ho did not mind. He was patient. He did his work and kept his head down. He learned the Valari language. He studied their customs. He watched and listened. That was his strength. He was good at watching. The Valari were beautiful in a strange way. Their skin was silver, like polished metal. Their eyes were completely black, with no white parts at all. They were tall and thin, and they moved like dancers. Everything about them was elegant and cold. They ruled a vast empire. Hundreds of planets answered to their queen. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of Earth. One Valari warship could destroy all of humanity without effort. That was why Earth sent diplomats like Tae-ho. To smile. To bow. To hope the Valari never noticed them. It was late evening when the knock came. Tae-ho was reading a book from Earth. A collection of old Korean folktales. He missed home sometimes. The food. The sound of rain. The busy streets of Seoul. He opened the door and found 4 Imperial guards standing outside. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces showed no emotion. "Kang Tae-ho," one of them said. It was not a question. "You will come with us." Tae-ho felt his heart beat faster. This was not normal. In 2 years, no guard had ever come to his room. He thought of all the things he might have done wrong. Had he offended someone? Had he broken some rule he did not know about? "May I ask why?" he said carefully. "The Queen has summoned you." The Queen. Tae-ho felt the blood drain from his face. The Queen of the Valari Empire did not meet with low-ranking human diplomats. She barely met with Earth's ambassador. Something was very wrong. He had no choice. Refusing a royal summons meant death. He nodded and followed the guards. They walked through corridors he had never seen before. The deeper they went into the palace, the more beautiful everything became. The walls were covered with ancient tapestries showing Valari history, great battles, conquered worlds, queens and kings from thousands of years ago. Tae-ho felt very small. His species had been building mud houses when the Valari were already ruling the stars. Finally, they reached a massive door. It was made of some white crystal that glowed softly from inside. 2 more guards stood at attention. They looked at Tae-ho with something like disgust. The doors opened slowly. The throne hall was the largest room Tae-ho had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Floating lights drifted through the air, like lazy fireflies. Hundreds of Valari nobles stood on both sides of a long carpet that led to the throne, and on that throne sat Queen Ilara. She was ancient. Tae-ho knew she was over 800 years old. But she looked like a woman in her 40s. Her silver skin was flawless. Her black eyes held the weight of centuries. She wore a simple white dress, but somehow it looked more regal than any crown. Beside her stood a younger Valari woman. She was perhaps the most beautiful being Tae-ho had ever seen. Her silver hair fell to her waist. Her features were sharp and perfect, but her eyes, when they looked at Tae-ho, were full of cold anger. Princess Nyla, the queen's only daughter. Tae-ho walked forward. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him. The silence was so heavy it pressed against his skin. When he reached the proper distance from the throne, he knelt, as he had been taught. "Rise, Earthling," the queen said. Her voice was soft, but it filled the entire hall. "Look at me." Tae-ho stood and raised his eyes. He tried to keep his face calm, but his heart was racing. The queen studied him for a long moment. Her black eyes seemed to see everything. His fear, his confusion, the small hope that he might survive this. "Kang Tae-ho," she said finally, Are you prepared to be my daughter's husband? The words did not make sense at first. Taeho heard them, but his brain refused to understand. Husband? The princess? Him? He heard gasps from the nobles around him. He saw Princess Nyla's hands tighten into fists. Her beautiful face twisted with disgust and fury. Your Majesty, Taeho said slowly, I do not understand. The words were simple enough, the queen replied. I am offering you my daughter's hand in marriage. You will become a prince of the Valari Empire. Your children will carry royal blood. The hall erupted in whispers. Taeho heard words like insult and madness and animal. The nobles were not hiding their shock and anger. Princess Nyla stepped forward. Mother, I must protest. This is beneath our dignity. He is a human. His species was living in caves while we were building empires. Silence, the queen said. Just one word. But it was enough. The princess stepped back, her face burning with humiliation. The queen returned her attention to Taeho. You have not answered my question, Earthling. Are you prepared? Taeho's mind raced. This made no sense. The Valari considered humans inferior. A marriage between their princess and a human should be unthinkable. There had to be a reason, something he did not know, but he also knew one thing clearly. Saying no to the queen of the Valari meant death, not just for him, but possibly for Earth's entire diplomatic mission, maybe for Earth itself. He thought of his family back home, his mother, who called him every week through the expensive interstellar connection, his younger sister, who was just starting university, the billions of humans who had no idea their fate might depend on his next words. Taeho took a deep breath. He looked at the queen, then at the princess who hated him already. Your Majesty, he said, his voice steady despite his fear. I am prepared. The queen smiled. It was a cold smile, but there was something like satisfaction in it. Then it is decided. The engagement will be announced tomorrow. Princess Nyla turned and walked away without looking at him. The nobles parted to let her pass, their faces showing mixtures of pity and contempt. Taeho stood alone in the great hall, surrounded by aliens who despised him, engaged to a princess who wanted him dead. He had no idea what he had agreed to. He only knew that his simple, quiet life was over. Everything was about to change. The guards took Taeho to new quarters after the ceremony. His old room had been simple and small. This one was larger than his family's entire apartment back in Seoul. The walls were made of that same glowing crystal. The furniture looked like it cost more than he would earn in a lifetime. He did not sleep that night. He sat by the window and watched the stars, trying to understand what had happened. In the morning, a servant came. She was a young Valari woman with nervous eyes. She brought him food and new clothes. The clothes were Valari style, made of fabric that felt like water against his skin. The queen will see you after the morning meal, the servant said, to explain the arrangement. Taeho nodded. At least he would get answers. He ate alone. The food was strange but not bad. Some kind of fruit that tasted like honey and flowers. Meat that melted on his tongue. He wondered if this was his last good meal. Maybe the queen had changed her mind. Maybe she would have him killed quietly. The same guards from last night came for him. They led him not to the throne hall this time, but to a smaller room. It was clearly the queen's private study. Books lined the walls. A large window showed a garden filled with plants he did not recognize. Queen Alara sat behind a simple desk. Without her throne and the crowd of nobles, she looked different. Older, tired, almost human. Sit, she said, pointing to a chair across from her. Taeho sat. He kept his back straight and his hands still. He waited. The queen studied him again with those deep black eyes. You are wondering why, she said. Why I would give my only daughter to a human. Yes, Your Majesty. The answer is simple. We are dying. Taeho blinked. The Valari were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had ruled for 10,000 years. How could they be dying? The queen stood and walked to the window. She looked out at her garden with sad eyes. "We are an old race," she said. "For thousands of years, we bred only among the noble bloodlines. We believed this would keep our blood pure and strong. We were wrong." She turned back to face him. "Each generation is weaker than the last. Our children are born sick. Many do not survive. Those who do often cannot have children of their own. My daughter is the last viable heir to the throne. If she cannot produce a healthy child, the royal line ends. The empire falls into chaos." Taeho listened carefully. He was beginning to understand. "Our scientists searched for a solution," the Queen continued. "They studied every species in the galaxy. And they found something unexpected. Humans. Humans, Your Majesty, your species is young, messy, chaotic. Your genetics are wild and unpredictable." The Queen almost smiled. "In other words, exactly what we need. Human DNA is remarkably adaptable. It can bond with almost any species. Your genes are loud, where ours have become silent." She returned to her seat and looked at him directly. "You were not chosen randomly, Kang Taeho. We have been watching humans for years, testing them without their knowledge. Your genetic profile is optimal. You are healthy, intelligent, and compatible with Valari biology." Taeho felt strange. He had been watched, tested, selected like a breeding animal. It should have made him angry. But he was too shocked to feel anything yet. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Marry my daughter. Give her children. Strong children who will carry both human fire and Valari grace." The Queen leaned forward. "Do this, and Earth will receive full protection under our empire. We will share technology, open trade routes. Your species will advance 1,000 years in a single generation." She paused. "Refuse, and Earth remains alone. Vulnerable. There are species in this galaxy who would destroy your planet for sport. We have protected you so far because you were useful to observe. Without this marriage, that protection ends." There it was. The threat behind the offer. "Marry the princess, or watch Earth burn." "And if I agree?" Taeho asked. "What happens to me?" "You become a prince. You live in luxury. You will have power and influence beyond anything a human has ever known." The Queen's eyes hardened. "But make no mistake. You are a tool, a means to an end. My daughter does not love you. She may never love you. If you expect romance, you will be disappointed. I understand. Do you?" The Queen stood again. "My daughter is proud. She sees this marriage as a humiliation. She will hate you. The nobles will hate you. There will be attempts on your life. Many attempts. Then why would I agree? Because you are human." The Queen smiled that cold smile again. "Your species is famous for doing impossible things for the people you love. You have a mother. Yes? A sister? You care about your planet. You will suffer anything to protect them." Taeho was silent for a long moment. She was right. He thought of his mother's voice on the phone, his sister's laugh, the cherry blossoms in spring, the sound of the sea. "If I do this," he said slowly, "I need your word. Real protection for Earth, not just promises. You dare to negotiate with me? I dare to protect my people, as you protect yours." Something flickered in the Queen's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. Taeho could not tell. "Very well," she said finally. "I will put it in the formal agreement. Earth will have full imperial protection from the day of your wedding." Taeho nodded. "Then I agree." "Good." The Queen pressed a button on her desk. "Guards, take him to meet his bride." The princess was waiting in a garden. It was beautiful, filled with silver flowers and trees with blue leaves. But her beauty was cold as she turned to face him. "So you agreed," she said. Her voice was like ice. "I did, because you had no choice. Because it was the right thing for both our peoples." Princess Nyla laughed bitterly. "Do not pretend to be noble, Earthling. You are here because my mother threatened your planet. You are a coward who chose survival over dignity. Taeho felt a spark of anger, but he kept his voice calm. And you are here because your bloodline is dying. We are both tools, princess. The only difference is that I accept it. Nyla's eyes widened. No one spoke to her like that. No one dared. For a moment, Taeho thought she would hit him. But instead, she just stared, her face unreadable. Do not mistake this for a partnership, she said finally. You will give me children. You will appear beside me at official events. But you will never touch me beyond what is necessary. You will never speak to me as an equal. You are a tool, nothing more. Taeho met her gaze steadily. Then we understand each other. Your Highness. He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the garden. Behind him, Nyla watched him go. Her face was still angry, but something else was there too. Something she did not want to admit. He had not begged. He had not cowered. He had looked at her like an equal and spoken his mind. No one had ever done that before. It made her curious. And she hated herself for it. The announcement went out across the empire the next day. Princess Nyla, heir to the Valari throne, would marry a human from Earth. The reaction was immediate and violent. On distant planets, crowds gathered to protest. On the space station itself, nobles whispered in angry groups. The news channels debated endlessly. Some called it a clever political move. Most called it madness. The loudest voice against the marriage belonged to High Commander Braun. He was the leader of the Valari military. A tall and powerful man with scars on his silver face. He had served the Empire for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. And he hated humans. This is an insult to everything we are, he declared in a public broadcast. The royal bloodline has remained pure for 10,000 years. Now it will be polluted by primitive genetics. Our queen has lost her mind. Taeho watched the broadcast from his new quarters. He knew men like Braun. Proud warriors who believed strength was everything. To Braun, the marriage was not just bad policy. It was personal shame. The first assassination attempt came 3 days later. Taeho had been careful with his food since the announcement. He ate only what the servant brought, and he watched her prepare it. But that evening, something felt wrong. The servant's hands were shaking. Her eyes kept looking away. Taeho looked at the wine glass on his tray. It looked normal. It smelled normal. But something deep in his gut told him to stop. He lifted the glass and pretended to drink, then set it down. The servant relaxed slightly. That tiny reaction told him everything. Who sent you? He asked quietly. The servant's face went pale. I do not know what you mean. The wine is poisoned. I can smell something wrong with it. Bitter almonds. Very faint. He leaned forward. I am not angry at you. I know you were forced. But I need to know who. The servant started crying. They said they would kill my family. I had no choice. Please. I did not want to. Who? I do not know their names. They wore military uniforms. Bronze men. Taeho was not surprised. He let the servant go. She would disappear, probably flee the station. He did not blame her. He reported the incident to the Queen's personal guard, but knew nothing would happen. Braun was too powerful to accuse without solid proof. The second attempt came a week later. Taeho was walking through a quiet corridor when a figure emerged from the shadows. The blade was fast, aimed at his heart. But Taeho had grown up in a rough neighborhood in Seoul. He had learned to sense danger before he could read. His body moved before his mind caught up. He twisted sideways. The blade cut his arm instead of his chest. He grabbed the attacker's wrist and twisted hard. The blade clattered to the floor. His elbow found the attacker's face. Once, twice, 3 times. When the guards arrived, they found Taeho standing over an unconscious Valari assassin, blood dripping from his wounded arm. He fell, Taeho said calmly. The guards looked at each other. They did not believe him. But they also saw something they did not expect. The human had won. Against a trained Valari fighter, he had won. Word spread quickly. The primitive Earthling had survival instincts the Valari had forgotten. The third attempt was the worst. Tejo woke in the middle of the night to a soft hissing sound. His room was filling with some kind of gas. He could already feel his thoughts becoming slow, but humans had evolved on a planet full of dangers. Forest fires, volcanoes, predators in the dark. Deep in human DNA was an ancient alarm that screamed when death was near. Tejo did not think. He grabbed a chair and threw it through the window. The crystal shattered. Air rushed out. Emergency systems activated. Within seconds, repair drones sealed the breach. Tejo collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath. He had almost died. Again, Princess Nyla found him there in the morning. She had come to discuss some formal arrangement for their wedding. Instead, she found him surrounded by broken glass, his arm still bandaged from the knife attack. Dark circles under his eyes. "What happened here?" she demanded. "Life support malfunction," Tejo said. His voice was rough. "Third time this week something has tried to kill me." Nyla looked around the room. Her sharp eyes saw the signs. The broken window. The faint smell of chemicals. This was no accident. "Why did you not report this to the guards? Would it matter?" Tejo laughed bitterly. "Whoever is doing this has power. The guards cannot help me." Nyla was quiet for a moment. She had expected the human to be dead by now. Everyone had expected it. But here he was. Still alive. Still standing. "How did you know the wine was poisoned?" she asked suddenly. "They told me you refused to drink it. It smelled wrong. Very faint, but wrong. Valari cannot smell those poisons. Our senses are not designed for it." Tejo shrugged. "Humans learned to detect danger before we learned to build fires. Our ancestors ate wrong berries and died. The survivors could smell poison. It passed down through generations. It is in our blood." Nyla studied him with new eyes. She had been raised to believe humans were primitive, weak, inferior. But this man had survived 3 assassination attempts in 2 weeks. He had done it not through technology or strength, but through instincts her people had lost long ago. "You are different than I expected," she admitted. "Is that a compliment?" "It is an observation." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "I will speak to my mother about increasing your security. You are no use to us dead." It was not kindness. She said it like he was valuable property, nothing more. But that night, new guards appeared outside his door. Royal guards, loyal only to the queen. The attacks stopped, and Princess Nyla began visiting him regularly. She said it was to discuss wedding plans, but she always stayed longer than necessary. She asked questions about Earth, about human history, about how such a weak species had survived so many dangers. Tejo answered honestly. He told her about ice ages and plagues, about wars and famines, about how humans had come close to extinction many times, but always found a way to continue. "Your species should not exist," Nyla said one evening. "By all logic, you should have died out long ago." "Maybe," Tejo agreed, "but we are stubborn. We do not like being told we cannot survive." Nyla almost smiled. Almost. She caught herself and made her face cold again. But something had changed between them. The contempt in her eyes was still there. But now it was mixed with something else. Curiosity. Interest. Perhaps even a small amount of respect. She would never admit it. Not to him. Not to herself. But it was a beginning. High Commander Braun came to Tejo's quarters on a cold morning. He did not knock. He simply walked in with 4 soldiers behind him. His scarred face showed no emotion, but his black eyes burned with hatred. Tejo had been eating breakfast. He set down his spoon and stood slowly. He knew this moment would come eventually. "Earthling," Braun said, "I challenge you to a duel of honor." The words hung in the air. Tejo had studied Valari customs. He knew what this meant. A duel of honor was an ancient tradition. 2 warriors fought until one yielded or died. Refusing the challenge would brand him a coward. The engagement would be cancelled. Earth would lose its protection. On what grounds? Taeho asked. His voice was calm. You have insulted the royal bloodline by agreeing to this marriage. You have shamed the empire. Only blood can wash away such dishonor. It was a lie, of course. Taeho had insulted nothing. But the ancient laws allowed any noble to challenge anyone for almost any reason. Braun was using the law as a weapon, and if I accept, then we fight in the grand arena. Tomorrow at sunset. The entire empire will watch. Braun smiled coldly. The entire empire will watch you die. Taeho looked at the commander. Braun was tall, over 2 meters. His body was pure muscle. Trained over 300 years of war. He moved like a predator. His reflexes would be faster than anything Taeho could match. By every measure, Taeho would lose. I accept, Taeho said. Braun's smile widened. Then I will see you in the arena, Earthling. Prepare your final words. He turned and left. His soldiers followed. One of them laughing quietly. Taeho stood alone in his room. His hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear, he told himself. From adrenaline. Princess Nyla came an hour later. Her face was pale with anger. You fool, she said. Why did you accept? You cannot beat him. No one can beat him. I had no choice. Refusing would end everything. So, instead, you will die. How does that help anyone? Taeho looked at her. For the first time, he saw something like worry in her eyes. Maybe she was just concerned about losing her breeding partner. Or maybe, just maybe, she was starting to care. I do not plan to die, he said simply. Plan? Braun has killed hundreds of warriors. He is the finest fighter in the Empire. What can you possibly do against him? Taeho sat down and closed his eyes. I need to think. Nyla stared at him. Then she did something unexpected. She sat down across from him. Tell me about human fighting, she said. He opened his eyes. What? Your species has been at war for your entire history. You must have learned something. Tell me how humans fight. So he told her. He told her about guerrilla warfare and ambushes. About feints and traps. About how smaller, weaker armies had defeated stronger enemies throughout human history. About how humans had survived not by being the strongest, but by being the most unpredictable. Nyla listened carefully. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. You cannot beat him fairly, she said finally. But you are not planning to fight fairly, are you? Taeho smiled. Humans never fight fair. We cannot afford to. The arena was massive. Taeho had seen it from a distance. But standing on the sand floor, he felt its true size. The seats rose up like mountains around him. Every seat was filled. Millions more watched on screens across the empire. Braun stood across from him. The commander wore light armor and carried a curved blade that gleamed under the lights. He looked relaxed, confident. This was entertainment for him. Taeho wore simple clothes. He held a straight sword, the closest thing to a weapon he knew how to use. His hands were sweaty on the grip. The queen sat in the royal box high above. Princess Nyla sat beside her. Even from this distance, Taeho could see that Nyla's hands were tight on the arms of her chair. A horn sounded. The duel began. Braun attacked immediately. He moved like water, his blade singing through the air. Taeho barely dodged the first strike. The second cut his shoulder. The third nearly took his head. The crowd cheered. This was what they expected. A quick execution. But Taeho was not trying to win yet. He was watching, learning. Braun was fast and strong, but he was also proud. He played with his opponents. He wanted to show off. Taeho let him. He retreated across the arena, taking small cuts and bruises. He stumbled. He fell. Each time, Braun laughed and let him get up. The crowd laughed too. The pathetic human could not even die with dignity. But Taeho was memorizing Braun's patterns. The way he favored his right side, the small hesitation before his strongest attack, The way his eyes moved just before he struck. 5 minutes passed. Tejo was bleeding from a dozen wounds. His breath was ragged. Any Valari would have yielded by now. But Tejo did not yield. He stood up again and again. His eyes never left Braun's face. The crowd grew quiet. Something was wrong. Why would not the human fall? Braun felt it too. The strange unease of facing an opponent who would not break. Why do you keep getting up? Braun demanded. You cannot win. Accept your death. Tejo spit blood onto the sand. I have seen worse beatings in a Soul Alley fight. Is this the best you can do? It was a lie. He was hurt badly. But Braun did not know that. For the first time, doubt flickered in the commander's eyes. He attacked again, harder this time, trying to end it. Tejo was ready. He dropped low, kicked sand into Braun's face. The commander stumbled, blinded for just a second. Tejo rolled behind him and slashed at the back of his knee. Braun roared in pain and spun around. But now he was limping. His perfect form was broken. Tejo did not let him recover. He attacked not with strength but with chaos. He threw his sword at Braun's face, forcing him to block. While Braun was distracted, Tejo grabbed a handful of sand and threw it again. The crowd was screaming. This was not how Valari fought. This was dirty, dishonorable, wrong. But Tejo was not Valari. He picked up Braun's dropped blade and pressed it against the commander's throat. Braun was on his knees, blood streaming from his leg, sand still in his eyes. Yield, Tejo said. Braun's face twisted with rage. He tried to rise, but his wounded leg would not support him. Yield, Tejo repeated. Or die. Your choice. The arena was silent. 10,000 Valari held their breath. Braun's shoulders fell. The fight left his eyes. I yield. Tejo stepped back. He dropped the blade and nearly fell himself. His vision was blurring. He had lost too much blood, but he was alive. He had won. The crowd did not cheer. They were too shocked. A human had defeated their greatest warrior. Not through strength, but through something they did not understand. Princess Nyla was waiting when Tejo limped out of the arena. Her face was unreadable. You fought like a madman, she said. Tejo smiled weakly. Blood was running down his face. I fought like a human. Nyla looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something she had never done before. She reached out and steadied him as he swayed. Come, she said softly. Let me help you to the healers. It was not a declaration of love. It was not even kindness, really, but it was the first time she had touched him willingly, and that meant everything. Recovery was slow. The Valari healers were skilled, far beyond anything on Earth. They closed Tejo's wounds with glowing instruments and gave him medicine that tasted like starlight. But even their technology could not erase the damage completely. He would carry scars from the duel for the rest of his life. He did not mind. Scars were proof that he had survived. Princess Nyla came to see him every day. At first, she said it was her duty. She had to monitor the health of her future husband. It was practical, political, nothing more. But she stayed longer each time. An hour became 2 hours, then 3. They talked about small things at first. The weather on different planets, the strange customs of distant species, safe topics that meant nothing. Then, one afternoon, Nyla asked a real question. What is Earth like? Tejo was sitting up in bed, still weak but healing. He looked out the window at the endless stars. It is small, he said. Just one planet. Blue and green and brown. Not very impressive compared to your empire. But what is it like? To live there? He thought about it. Loud. Crowded. Messy. There are too many people. And not enough space. Everyone is always rushing somewhere. The cities never sleep. That sounds terrible. Sometimes it is. He smiled. But sometimes, it is beautiful. In spring, the cherry trees bloom in Seoul. The whole city turns pink and white. People have picnics under the trees and drink and laugh. For a few weeks, everyone forgets to be stressed. Nyla tried to imagine it. A city covered in flowers. People laughing under trees. It sounded chaotic. Disorganized. Very human. What else? She asked. Taeho talked for hours. He told her about the street food vendors who sold spicy rice cakes at midnight. About the mountains where monks lived in ancient temples. About the sea where fishermen still worked like their grandfathers had worked. He told her about his mother, who made soup whenever he was sick. About his sister, who sent him pictures of her cat every week. About the small apartment where he grew up, where the walls were thin, and you could hear the neighbors fighting or singing or cooking. Your life sounds very full, Nyla said. Full of small things. That is all life is. Small things, one after another. Humans do not live long enough for the big things to matter. Nyla was quiet. The Valari lived for centuries. They planned in generations. They thought in epochs. The idea of living moment to moment was foreign to her. How long do humans live? She asked. 80 years, if we are lucky. Maybe 100 with good medicine. That is nothing. A blink of an eye. Yes, Taeho nodded. But we fill that blink with everything we can. We love harder because we know it ends. We create because we know we will be forgotten. Every moment matters because there are so few of them. Nyla looked at him differently then. She had thought of humans as inferior because they died so quickly. But now she saw something else. They were not weak despite their short lives. They were fierce because of them. The Valari used to have that fire, she said quietly. Long ago, when we were young, but we lived so long that we forgot how to be urgent. We became careful, patient, safe. She paused, dying. It was the first time she had admitted it out loud. The first time she had been vulnerable with him. Taeho reached out and took her hand. She did not pull away. Maybe that is why your mother chose a human, he said gently. Not just for the genetics, but for the fire. Nyla looked at their joined hands, silver skin against brown, two species that should never have touched. I hated you when I first saw you, she admitted. I thought you were beneath me. A primitive animal my mother had dragged into our palace. I know. I was wrong. The words seemed to cost her something. You are not what I expected. You are strange and stubborn, and you fight without honor, but you are also brave and honest, and you make me feel things I do not understand. Taeho squeezed her hand. That sounds like a compliment. Do not get used to it. But she was almost smiling. The ice in her eyes was melting. Slowly. Like snow in spring. Over the following weeks, they spent more time together. Nyla showed him the palace gardens, where flowers bloomed in colors that did not exist on Earth. She took him to the royal library, where books contained the history of 10,000 years. In return, Taeho taught her human things. He showed her how to cook ramen using the strange Valari ingredients. He taught her card games and told her jokes that did not translate well. He played her music from Earth, everything from traditional drums to modern pop songs. Nyla laughed for the first time when he tried to teach her a Korean dance. He was terrible at it, and she was even worse. They stumbled around the room like clumsy children until they both collapsed on a couch, breathless and giggling. This is ridiculous, Nyla said. A princess dancing to primitive Earth music. But you are having fun. She looked at him with those deep black eyes. It was not love yet. They were too different, too scarred, too careful for that. But it was something. A friendship, maybe. A partnership. The beginning of trust. One night, Nyla found Taeho on a balcony, looking up at the stars. What are you thinking about? She asked. Home. My family. I wonder if they know what is happening to me. Nyla stood beside him. Do you regret coming here? Sometimes. But then I remember why I agreed. He turned to face her. My people will be safe because of this. My mother and sister will live on a protected planet. That is worth any price. Even marrying a woman who tried to hate you? Tried? He smiled. Does that mean you failed? Nyla did not answer. Instead, she reached up and touched his face. Her fingers were cool against his skin, I chose to hate you because it was easier, she said softly. You were supposed to be a tool, something to use and discard. I was not supposed to care about you, and now I do not know what you are, but you are not just a tool anymore. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief and uncertain, like she was testing something new. When she pulled back, her cheeks had a slight silver flush. Do not read too much into that, she said quickly. I was curious. Nothing more. Taeho grinned. Of course. Pure scientific curiosity. Exactly. But she was holding his hand again. And she did not let go. They stood together under the stars. Two people from different worlds, finding something neither of them had expected. It was not quite love, not yet, but it was close. The wedding was set for the first day of the new imperial year. It was a date of great importance, a symbol of renewal and hope. Invitations went out to every noble house in the empire. Preparations began in earnest. The palace was decorated with flowers from 100 worlds. Taeho watched the chaos with quiet amazement. On Earth, a wedding was a family affair. Maybe 100 guests. Here, millions would attend in person. Billions would watch from across the galaxy. He was trying on his wedding clothes when the alarms began. The sound was unlike anything he had heard before. A deep, pulsing tone that seemed to vibrate in his bones. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Servants screamed and ran in all directions. Taeho grabbed the nearest guard. What is happening? Taeho grabbed the nearest guard. The guard's silver face was pale with fear. Military coup. Commander Braun's forces have taken the outer sections of the station. They are moving toward the palace. Braun. Of course. The commander had been quiet since his defeat in the arena. Too quiet. He had been planning this all along. Taeho ran toward Nyla's chambers. Soldiers rushed past him. Some loyal to the queen. Others wearing bronze insignia. Fighting had already begun in the corridors. He saw bodies on the floor. Silver blood on the walls. He found Nyla surrounded by her personal guards. She was dressed in armor, a blade in her hand. Her face was hard and ready for battle. Taeho! She grabbed his arm. You should not be here. Braun's men are hunting you. I came to help. Help? She almost laughed. You can barely hold a sword. What can you do against an army? I do not know yet, but I am not leaving you. Before she could argue, one of her guards spoke urgently. Your Highness, we have received word. The queen has been captured. Braun is holding her in the throne hall. Nyla's face went white. Mother, Taeho's mind raced. Braun had the queen. That meant he had leverage. He could force anything he wanted. The marriage would be cancelled. Taeho would be executed, and Earth would lose its protection. But more than that, Nyla's mother was in danger. The woman who had started all of this, who had gambled everything on a desperate plan to save her people. We need to rescue her, Taeho said. Impossible. Braun has hundreds of soldiers. The loyalist forces are scattered. Nyla's voice was breaking. We cannot fight our way through. Then we do not fight our way through. Taeho grabbed her shoulders and made her look at him. Listen to me. I have an idea. But I need your help. Nyla stared at him. This human who should have been helpless. This man who had no army, no power, nothing but his strange human mind. What is your idea? Taeho told her. It was crazy. It was impossible. It was the most human plan she had ever heard. She agreed. An hour later, Taeho stood outside the palace's communication center. 2 of Nyla's guards had gotten him this far. But they could go no further. The center was guarded by bronze soldiers. Taeho walked toward them with his hands raised. I surrender, he said. Take me to Commander Braun. Tell him the Earthling wants to negotiate. The soldiers laughed. They bound his hands and dragged him through the corridors. They did not search him carefully. Why would they? He was just a weak human. They brought him to the throne hall. Braun sat on the queen's throne, smiling like a cat that had caught a very large mouse. Queen Alara knelt before him, her hands bound, her silver face bruised. Ah, The Earthling, Bronn said. Come to beg for your life? I came to make a deal. A deal? Bronn laughed. You have nothing to offer. Your planet is worthless. Your species is worthless. You are worthless. Maybe. Teho moved closer, ignoring the soldiers who grabbed at him. But I know something you do not. Something that could ruin everything you have worked for. Bronn's smile faded slightly. What are you talking about? The Loyalist forces. They are not scattered. They are gathering in the East Wing, preparing a counterattack. They will be here in less than an hour. It was a lie. There were no forces gathering. But Bronn did not know that. You are bluffing. Am I? Send someone to check. I will wait. Bronn hesitated. That hesitation was all Teho needed. At that moment, the lights went out. The palace was plunged into complete darkness. Emergency lights flickered, but did not turn on. The power systems had been sabotaged from the communication center. Exactly as Teho had planned. In the darkness, chaos erupted. Teho dropped to the floor. His bound hands found the small blade hidden in his sleeve. A blade the soldiers had not found because they had not searched carefully. He cut himself free and rolled behind a pillar. Gunfire and shouting filled the throne hall. Bronn's soldiers could not see. They fired blindly, hitting each other as often as anything else. But the attackers could see. Nyla had given them special lenses that worked in total darkness. Human technology, actually. Night vision was something humans had invented long ago. Because human eyes were weak, and humans had learned to compensate. There were only 5 attackers. Teho himself, Nyla, and 3 of her most loyal guards. Against 50 of Bronn's soldiers, but in the dark, numbers did not matter. Nyla moved like a ghost. Her blade found throat after throat. The guards followed her lead, silent and deadly. Teho could not see them, but he could hear the soft sounds of bodies falling. He crawled toward where he had last seen the queen. His hands found her. Your Majesty, he whispered. Can you move? Earthling, her voice was weak but steady. You came for me. Of course. You are going to be my mother-in-law. He heard something that might have been a laugh. He cut her bonds and helped her up. The lights came back on. Teho blinked in the sudden brightness. The throne hall was a battlefield. Bodies lay everywhere. Bronn's soldiers were dead or dying. Bronn himself stood alone, his blade raised, blood on his armor. He was surrounded by Nyla and her guards. Surrender, Nyla said. Her voice was ice. Never. Bronn's face twisted with hate. I would rather die than submit to this human filth. That can be arranged. She moved forward, but Teho stopped her. Wait. He stepped between them, facing Bronn directly. You hate me because I am human. Because you think we are inferior. Primitive. You are. Maybe. Teho spread his arms. But we just defeated your army with 5 people. We did it with darkness and confusion, and things you never expected. We did it because we are used to being weak. We have been fighting stronger enemies our entire history. He looked at the carnage around them. That is what humanity is. Commander. We are the species that survives. No matter what. No matter how. Now. Bronn's blade wavered. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. Not fear of death, fear of understanding. The Valari had conquered the galaxy through strength and technology. Humans had survived their own planet through cunning and chaos. And when those 2 approaches met, chaos won. Bronn dropped his blade. I yield, he said. The words tasted like poison. Nyla's guards seized him. It was over. Queen Ilara walked forward. Despite her injuries, she held herself like a queen. She looked at Teho with new eyes. You saved me, she said. You risked everything to save me. You are family now. Or, you will be. The queen was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, she bowed her head. I chose better than I knew, she said softly. Nyla came to stand beside Taeho. She took his hand. You are insane, she told him. I know. That was the worst plan I have ever heard. I know. I think I might love you. Taeho smiled. I know that too. They stood together in the ruined throne hall, surrounded by the aftermath of battle, holding hands like teenagers. It was not the most romantic moment, but it was real. The wedding happened 2 weeks after the coup. The Empire needed time to heal, but it also needed hope. Queen Ilara insisted on keeping the original date. The galaxy would see that the Valari were not broken. They would see the future. The palace had been repaired. The blood had been cleaned away. Fresh flowers covered every surface, brought from planets across the Empire. The crystal walls had been polished until they shone like diamonds. Taeho stood before a mirror in his dressing room, trying to figure out his wedding clothes. Valari formal wear was complicated. Too many layers, too many clasps. He felt like he was being gift-wrapped. A knock came at the door. Yunhana walked in without waiting for permission. She was a diplomat from Earth's embassy. A small woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She had been one of the 5 who had helped during the coup. Now she looked at Taeho and shook her head. You look ridiculous, she said. Thank you for your support. That belt goes the other way. She stepped forward and fixed it with quick, efficient movements. How are you feeling? Ready to become a prince? Taeho looked at his reflection. The man in the mirror looked like a stranger, dressed in silver and white, looking almost Valari himself. But his eyes were still human. Tired. Nervous. A little scared. No, he admitted. I am not ready. But I do not think anyone is ever ready for something like this. Hana finished with his clothes and stepped back. You know what you are about to do? You are not just getting married. You are becoming a symbol. Earth's first step into the galactic stage. Every human will be watching. No pressure. None at all. She smiled slightly. For what it is worth, I think you will be fine. You survived assassination attempts, defeated their greatest warrior, and rescued the queen from a military coup. A wedding should be easy. The wedding is not the hard part. The marriage is. Hana was quiet for a moment. Do you love her? Taeho thought about Nyla. Her cold eyes that had slowly warmed. Her rare smiles that felt like victories. The way she held his hand now, like it was natural. Like she had always done it. Yes, he said. I think I do. Then everything else is details. Hana patted his shoulder. Now stop worrying and go get married. I did not fly across the galaxy to watch you have a crisis. The ceremony took place in the Grand Hall. It was the same hall where Taeho had first met the Queen, where his world had changed forever. But it looked different now. Brighter. More welcoming. 10,000 guests filled the seats. Nobles from every corner of the empire. Diplomats from allied species. A small group of humans from Earth, including Taeho's mother and sister, who had been brought on a special imperial ship. His mother had cried when she saw him. She had held his face and told him he had grown too thin. Some things were the same in every corner of the galaxy. Music filled the air as Taeho walked down the long carpet toward the altar. He tried not to trip. He tried not to look too nervous. He tried to remember to breathe. And then Nyla appeared. She wore white, like a Earth bride might wear. She had chosen it on purpose, she told him, as a gesture to his people. Her silver skin glowed against the fabric. Her black eyes caught the light. A crown of crystal flowers sat on her head. She was the most beautiful thing Taeho had ever seen. She walked toward him with perfect grace. When she reached the altar, she took his hands. Hers were trembling slightly. You are shaking, Taeho whispered. So are you. We can be nervous together. Queen Ilara stood before them. She would perform the ceremony herself, as was tradition for royal weddings. Her face was solemn, but her eyes were warm. We gather here to witness the union of 2 souls, she began. Princess Nyla of the Valari Empire and Kang Taeho of Earth. 2 peoples, 2 worlds, 1 future. The ceremony was long and full of rituals Taeho did not fully understand. There were oaths spoken in ancient Valari. There were symbols drawn in light. There were blessings from priests of 3 different religions. But through it all, Taeho held Nyla's hands and looked into her eyes, and she looked back at him. Finally, the queen spoke the words that mattered most. Do you, Princess Nyla, take this man as your husband? Do you accept him into your blood? Your life? Your future? Nyla's voice was clear and strong. I do. And do you, Kang Taeho, take this woman as your wife? Do you accept her into your blood? Your life? Your future? Taeho smiled. I do. Then, by the power vested in me by 10,000 years of Valari tradition, I declare you married. You are one. The hall erupted in cheers. Music swelled. Flowers fell from the ceiling like colorful rain, but Taeho barely noticed. He was kissing his wife for the first time as her husband. Her lips tasted like honey and starlight. The celebration lasted for 3 days. There was food and music and dancing. Taeho taught the nobles how to do human dances, badly. Nyla laughed more in those 3 days than she had in her entire life. On the final night, Taeho was asked to give a speech. He stood before the massive crowd, feeling small and ordinary. But he had learned something in his time with the Valari. Sometimes being ordinary was its own kind of strength. I am a human, he began, his voice carried through the hall. We are a young species. We have only been traveling the stars for a few years. Compared to the Valari, compared to many races here, we are children. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Humans are not special because we are strong. We are one of the weakest species in the galaxy. We are not special because we are smart. There are races here far more intelligent than us. We are not special because we are beautiful, or ancient, or powerful. He found Nyla in the crowd. She was watching him with soft eyes. We are special because we are fragile. We know we will die. We know everything we build will crumble. We know that nothing lasts. His voice grew stronger. And we love. Anyway. We create anyway. We hope anyway. Every moment matters to us because we have so few of them. He raised his glass. That is what humanity offers to the galaxy. Not technology or power, but fire. The fire that comes from knowing your time is short. The fire that makes every second precious. The fire that refuses to accept that anything is impossible. He looked at Nyla again. She was crying, silver tears running down her silver face. I married a princess from the stars, he said. A year ago, I could not have imagined that. But humans dream impossible things. And sometimes, those dreams come true, he smiled. To the future. To the stars. To dreams that should not work, but do anyway. The crowd raised their glasses. To the future. Later that night, Taeho and Nyla stood alone on a balcony, looking out at the stars. The celebrations continued behind them. But they had stolen away for a quiet moment. That was a good speech, Nyla said. I meant every word. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. What happens now? What does the future hold? I do not know, Taeho admitted. There will be challenges, problems, people who still hate this marriage. But we will face them together. Together. Nyla smiled at the word. I like that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the distant stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. A tiny blue dot, where Taeho's story had begun, and all around them was the Empire, vast and ancient, now joined to humanity in a way no one had expected. My mother called me today, Nyla said suddenly. She said something strange. What? She said that when she first saw you, she knew you were the one. Not because of your genetics or your intelligence, but because of the way you stood in the throne hall. Alone, surrounded by enemies, and you were not afraid. Taeho laughed. I was terrified. That is what she said you would say. Nyla looked up at him. She said that is what made her certain. You were afraid, but you stood anyway. That is what humans do. You are afraid, and you stand anyway. Taeho thought about that. About all the times he had been scared, the assassination attempts, The duel. The coup. He had been afraid every single time, but he had stood anyway, because there were things more important than fear. I think that is the secret of humanity, he said slowly. We are not brave because we are not afraid. We are brave because we are afraid, and we act anyway. Fear does not stop us. It just makes the victory sweeter. Nyla kissed him softly. I am glad I married you, Kang Tae-ho of Earth. I am glad I married you, Princess Nyla of the Valari Empire. They held each other under the stars, two people from different worlds, building something new together. The future was uncertain. There would be hardships ahead. Children to raise. Worlds to unite. An empire to guide into a new age. But they would face it together. Human fire and Valari grace. Hope and patience. Chaos and order. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.